Good morning, ES1ers. I'm sorry there's going to probably be some background noise in this recording because we've got work going on outside. I have landscapers and roof workers, so there's going to be lots of pounding, and you can probably already hear the blowers in the background. So, welcome to week 5. I have kind of created an easier week this week, or at least I think so. I know that there's a lot of work associated with this class. I know that I am known for that, but I need you to do the work in order to understand the concepts. And so the strategy I use is that you're engaged in actually doing the research yourself, rather than me putting up videos of myself talking a lot and lecturing and using PowerPoint slides. For me, this is a strategy that allows students who need that level of engagement to really understand things. Personally, I don't do well with sitting and listening to lectures myself, although I have had to sit through many lectures. But I think also for being an online class, it's better to have you more engaged and understand how to utilize the resources that are available to you, which is why I really like the part of the book that talks about media and information. I always tell my students that I'm not going to be able to continue on your educational journey with you or into your career. So rather than teach you that I'm a resource and answer your questions for you, I'd rather teach you how to use resources yourself so that you can continuously answer questions that arise in your own mind as a result of the information that you have been exposed to, whether it be in the media, through the television, internet, through friends. I have lots of friends throughout my life. I've been exposed to many people of varying levels of education and experience who have beliefs on certain things. Some of them are very knowledgeable and do their research, and some of them just believe whatever they hear. So one of the important aspects of this course for me is that you learn how to sift through information. I've looked over the discussion topics. I've done my best to respond to emails. It seems like people are a little bit worried about deadlines, but as I mentioned before, the last day of class, which I believe is officially, let me pull up my calendar, or not. I believe it's Sunday. So this is this week. I believe it would be Sunday the 31st, but I will check that. I just need to get grades in by a certain date. So just keep working, keep moving forward, do the best you can, submit what you have, don't give up, because you never know what will happen. This week I think I'm giving you a little bit of a lighter workload, but I'll do that next week as well so that you can focus some time. And what you'll see at the bottom of this week's layout is that I'm giving you part of the time that would be allocated otherwise to doing classwork, to working on your final project and your student action plan, which I covered in the last video. So let's go ahead and talk about what I have for you this week. So one of the big things that's going on, obviously, in the United States right now is the presidential election that's coming up in November. So what I did is I wanted to tie in some current events that are related to things that I think that are of interest to all of you. And the first one we're going to look at is not really a federal or national conversation at this time. It's more of a state conversation. So we're going to start out at the state level, and we're going to look at actually, you're going to listen to a podcast that's from this group called Commonwealth Club. Now, the Commonwealth Club puts up these various podcasts, and this one in particular is part of a series that is called Climate One. So Climate One is something I want you to take a look at. They do various podcasts on different things. This one here that's exemplified is about, now it went away. It's about, go back, Diablo Canyon Nuclear Power Plant, which is located in San Luis Obispo County, I believe. It has been decommissioned. It is not going to be functioning anymore. It is not the only nuclear power plant that exists in California, although at this time we're seeing nuclear facilities decrease. There is another one that exists in San Diego called San Onofre. And San Onofre has also been decommissioned. What that means is that it will no longer be used for energy generation at all. And since it's been built as a nuclear facility, it will no longer function. The cost of continuing to generate this nuclear energy, whether it be including the social impacts, people don't really want nuclear energy around them because there is a large risk associated with nuclear energy. With regards to radioactivity, with regards to a possible meltdown or other issues. And if you know anything about the situation in Japan with Fukushima, then you'll understand why. I'm not going to assign that to you at this time, but if your group project is energy, let's see what the topics were. If your group project was energy, then you might want to take a look at Fukushima, why people don't like nuclear. Some people claim nuclear is a renewable resource, and others would argue that it is not. So that's just something that's interesting. If you're doing your project on energy, you might want to listen to this podcast to get some information. This one right here, not the assigned one. So here we go. Here's more energy. Bread, wine, and chocolate. How will those be affected? We've been hearing a lot about the impacts of climate change on various agricultural crops. Last week, you all looked into the agricultural influences within the state of California, the economic impacts as well as the environmental impacts. And you're going to notice a lot of these overlaps with the environment, with the economy, with society, and with politics. What I've noticed in some of the writings and the homeworks that I've reviewed, all the work that you guys have been doing in your discussions, is that some of you are having a difficult time grasping the concept of, if we know this is going on, if we know climate change is occurring, if the science says that, then why is the government not doing anything about it? And that ties to the political climate. What's going on with our politicians and our leaders and who they represent. So the government can, if the people in power in the government want to influence in a positive way policies so that they are representing us in a way that we're moving towards a more stable future with regards to climate change. And those would be individuals that encourage regulations on carbon dioxide emissions as well as other emissions. Methane is also a greenhouse gas, which I believe you all learned about. Carbon dioxide and methane are the highest contributors to the acceleration of the greenhouse effect. So those two things could be regulated more strictly. However, we have politicians in place that don't support that, so they intermingle within the structure of our government to oppose those types of regulations because they have beliefs that either climate change is not occurring, or maybe they have money that's coming in through lobbying that gives them an incentive to not want to encourage regulations on certain industries because they're actually receiving personal benefits, which is illegal, but it happens. So there's a lot of different reasons why the United States is not embracing these this governmental oversight that a lot of you are kind of like, why is this not happening? So it's very complicated. The relationships between all of this stuff is very, very complicated, and that's why when people think, you know, oh, you study the environment, you study environmental studies. I actually have my bachelor's and my master's degree in environmental science. They think it's a very simple subject. They think it's very easy, and it's kind of like, oh, just take those classes, it's easy, and you'll just skate through it. But in fact, in my own personal opinion, I think studying environmental studies, environmental science is actually one of the most difficult topics, because you have to know about all of the interdisciplinary subjects. So we're looking at the social sciences right now, and we're touching on some of the natural sciences, the more biological, ecological, those aspects of the environment. But when you look at it as a whole, you've got every subject represented. So if you were to take environmental science and ES1, which you're in right now, then you would have a full spectrum of knowledge on how all of these different subjects, which you could study individually and get your degrees in, how they interact. So to understand the interaction of these different subjects, you have to understand each of the different subjects. So if you looked up, for instance, I got my bachelor's degree at the University of California, Santa Barbara. I have a bachelor's of science in environmental studies with an emphasis in ecology, evolution, and marine biology. If you went into the requirements for that degree, you would see that I had to take physics, calculus, differential equations, chemistry, a year of biology, a year of the environmental series. It actually ends up being a course load that seems to exceed 4 years, which is what we're hearing about a lot of higher education, specifically with regards to students like yourself that are coming from the community colleges, is that a college degree, a bachelor's degree, no longer takes 4 years as previously anticipated. So if you're in that situation, don't worry about it. In all honesty, it took me 6.5 years to get my bachelor's degree. I was fine. I have not good grades that you could see on my transcripts. And I still was successful and was accepted to the program. I don't know why I'm not showing you guys on online. Let's see if I can find it. It's called the Donald Bren School of Environmental Science and Management at UCSB. It's a master's program. This is where I got my master's degree. Same thing. If you go in and look at what the academic programs are and what the requirements are, you'll see that it's a wide spectrum of subjects. This is a higher level, obviously, because it's a master's level, which is what comes after a bachelor's degree. But there are some pretty in-depth subjects that are required just to get the degree, and then there are specializations. And since I'm here, I'll just show you all. This was my specialization. It actually is in pollution prevention and remediation. What that means is, how about we not have pollution in the first place? How do we use these policies that I'm trying to teach you all about, our understanding of politics as well as the environment, to minimize and not have the pollution in the first place? Let's prevent it. And then remediation is, okay, maybe we didn't have preventative measures in place, or maybe the politics of the situation didn't play out to where we could actually prevent it. So now what do we do to remediate or fix it? What is the cost? And in the assignment today, you're actually going to be looking at some videos that talk about environmental economics and how do we evaluate those potential impacts on the environment, And this would be one of the valuations. What are the costs of cleaning something up versus preventing it in the first place? So back to the video, sorry, the podcast. I'm giving you a podcast this week because podcasts to me actually are things that I can listen to while doing other things, and sitting in front of the computer watching videos sometimes doesn't work out as well. So I thought this was a good topic. It's something that's really kind of out there right now in the state of California. We've seen Colorado legalizing marijuana, and Oregon, I believe, has done it now too. There are certain levels of accepted use of marijuana in California, and there are environmental impacts that you may not be aware of. I just remembered that there was another video, but it's okay. So we're gonna listen to this podcast. I want you to pay attention to who these gentlemen are. I'm asking you to kind of tell me who they are. So do a Google search on who are these people so that you understand prior who they are and what their opinions represent, because they're not all on the same page, and you're going to see that. So I have a series of questions that I want you to answer, but I'm not asking you to just list them out 1 to 12. I want you to write a 2-page double-spaced reflection, and in the reflection I want you to use the information that I'm asking for here to just use it to inform your reflection. So these are just some things that I pulled out of the podcast when I listened to it. Okay, so that's part 1, and I believe I have a Turnitin for week 5 podcast. There you go. Okay, part 2 is a series of environmental economics videos, and these are kind of like I'm going to close this. It's kind of like, I'm going to go straight to the link so it looks exactly like what you guys see. Oh, except that doesn't work, right? So these are kind of like the story of stuff, but they're not as general. So I don't want you to get caught up in too much of the vocabulary that's associated with the economics. I want you to take in the visualization if that's how you learn better. I think they do a good job of representing some of the graphs and some of the information in a more visual context. When you get to the page, so I just clicked on it. I don't know why it's not moving. There we go. Scroll down and you'll see all the videos, but pay attention to the list that I've given you because I'm not asking you to watch all of them. There are a lot, but they're very short. There we go. So pay attention to which ones I'm requesting. And we're going to do something similar to what you did for the batch of Story of Stuff videos, in that you can take this, make it a title, give a couple sentences, I don't know, maybe 4 sentences, because there's so much information. I don't want you to get caught up and be trying to define the terms and trying to understand the deeper economic concepts. I just want you to get an understanding of how this all works. So environmental economics is a very complicated subject. If you noticed when I went to the page that showed what I did for my master's, you'll see that there is a significant portion of my degree that was focused on economics and policy. I actually went above and beyond and took more classes. So I'm trying to expose you to the important concepts that tie into politics, because the politicians have the ability to propose and vote on these policies that influence how we manage our resources, okay? So pay attention to the list. I don't want you to watch anything that's unnecessary. And I created let's check, a Turnitin folder for the environmental economics videos right there, okay? So that's very similar. In the last video that you're watching, the fisheries These are introductions to forestry and fisheries, just as an example of how to look at how we can analyze resource consumption and market-based strategies to positively or negatively influence our environment, depending on what your outcome that you desire would be as a policymaker. In the video, they talk about the tragedy of the commons. So I want you to do your own research on the tragedy of the commons. What does it mean? Use the information you get from the fisheries video to inform your research. I also want you to connect it to Easter Island. So if you just do a quick search of tragedy, I'll probably spell it wrong, tragedy of the commons and Easter Island, things will pop up. A case study in resource depletion. Take a look. You can read. You can find videos. You can search however you want, but remember, we need to take a look at what group is presenting the information. So what is the tragedy of the commons? And how is it related to Easter Island? You're going to have to look up, and I definitely want you to take a look at Easter Island just by itself at some of the footage. You can probably find some really great National Geographic videos if you're into that to use if you like video. So there's some good information. Easter Island is very interesting. You'll probably want to look on a map, Google map it, see where it is. It's kind of interesting to take a look at where it exists, and it also informs why we're able to use it as a model for excess or excessive resource consumption and depletion. Okay, so we have a folder for that. I'm not sure if I checked already, so we'll check again. Oh, just kidding. It's going to be a combination of your Easter Island and then another Jared Diamond talk. Jared Diamond, as you already know because you watched Guns, Germs, and Steel episode 1, I believe it was called Into Eden or Out of Eden. You got to see his one side of societies. How do they come to be more successful? How do certain groups of people become more successful than others? This piece is his follow-up book, which is called Collapse, and I can show you what the cover looks like. Just look at the image. And this book is about how societies choose to fail or succeed. So what we have here is this great little TED Talk. It's, I think, about 15 minutes. And in it, Jared Diamond addresses his 5-point framework for societal collapse. So what I want you to do is I want you to list. So in the first part of this, you're going to do maybe half a page, whatever you're comfortable with, showing me that you researched Tragedy of the Commons and Easter Island. And in the second part, what you're going to do is you're going to identify Jared Diamond's 5-point framework and give examples. And he gives examples in the piece. So it's not going to be difficult. It just requires some time and some concentration, okay? So both of those items go into this Turnitin folder, okay? Now, the last thing you're going to be doing this week is, as I've mentioned, and we're talking about resources, how we define resources, how are the economics, our economy is influenced by resources, how politics tie into those resources. We're having a major conversation in our country right now. We are headed into the next presidential election. There's been a lot of interesting dialogue up until this point. But what we're going to look at in class is who are these people that are leaders of the two-party system that we have, which is Republican and Democrat. We're going to look at them, and what I want you to do is I actually want you to Google or search, whatever, Bing, do whatever you do, find Donald Trump. I already told you who it is. Find Donald Trump's acceptance speech for his candidacy as the representative of the Republican Party. I want you to watch it. I believe it's about an hour long. I want you to pay attention to what he says. What does he say he's going to do? Think about the groups of people who would benefit, the groups of people that would not benefit. Who do you think he represents? And I put this in some questions, some leading questions in here. So who is the Republican candidate for presidential candidacy? I answered that for you. Tell me about what the candidate says he or she will do for the country. How will their ideas influence the future of this country? What is your perspective on the individual? Before you actually write anything, I want you to watch these two videos. They're from a campaign called Rock the Vote, which is a nonpartisan, meaning it doesn't necessarily go towards Republicans or Democrats. It's a nonpartisan project that aims to get young people active in the voting process. So one of the videos talks about the history of voting, and then the next one, they both include people that are known to, I guess it would be millennials. So the next one is just kind of a fun one I added on there. There's a whole bunch more. They do them all the time. But this second one is from November 2014. So they're not necessarily talking about the upcoming election. They're talking about the one that already passed. But I added a question here. What do you turn out for in the voting process? Now, I noticed in a lot of the writings, and this happens with every class, that a lot of you are very concerned about your writing style and your level. I don't want you to be worried about that. I want you to focus on just writing, free write. What do you think? What excitement do you have? Do you have any fears? Do you have any concerns? I want you to just kind of free write and get those emotions out. Normally in class, we would have conversations. And I know even in speaking, it's very intimidating at times. But I don't want you to be intimidated. I want you to be comfortable in your communication, because the only way that we can build to a higher level of communication is to practice. So in our format that we're using for this class, it's through writing. And so do your best. I don't know where to put the parentheses on this one. We'll just put it here. Do your best to just tell me what you're, just free write. It's a healthy exercise to practice. Don't worry about using big words. I don't use big words. And I don't spell very well, so good thing there's spell check, okay? So the last part is to work on your final project and your student action plan. And I looked at what's been going on so far. I already kind of addressed, if you're on energy, take a look at those podcasts. If you need assistance or guidance, you need me to help you, aim you in some direction, then email me and I'd be happy to provide you with some links from organizations that I trust to get information from. So don't just wander around and not, have any ideas. If you're stuck, then shoot me an email. I'm fairly responsive. I'm really excited to see that everybody dropped their names into the subjects. I'm very happy to see that all subjects are covered. That was exciting. And I'm not too surprised that the two that have the most are the ones that are energy and transportation, because those two seem to directly influence us. Plus, we just came off of the segment about fossil fuels and the use of them in transportation. I also went in and looked at the slides, and I'm super impressed. Really great work. I noticed that some of them don't have your names on them, so I need you to put your names on your section, such as this. And then I'm giving you more time this week to do more work if you need to. If you've already done your slides, that doesn't mean that you're not getting to use that time to your benefit, because we still also have our student action plan, which I believe I posted. I'm sorry. Yeah, student action plan. I posted down here. Where did I put it? right here. Okay, so if you didn't get or you didn't watch the video where I explained what I'm expecting from this, it was last week, and this file has everything outlined as well. The last thing, which I have to still post, maybe I'll do it right now. Let's see, where are we? Here we are. Is our discussion topic for this week. So our discussion topic, which is actually called a forum, I'm going to do this at the same time. I'm going to add it so that you have week 5. And you get to see what I go through on my end. I'm sure the screen recording isn't helping. Okay, let's see. So there's week 5 right here. Let's go ahead and add a forum for our weekly discussion. I know I said initially it would be current events, but I've kind of gotten excited about changing up the topic so that we're not just talking about the same things. So this week we're going to talk about environmental laws. And you're going to get to pick one. There's a whole bunch. You can Google environmental laws. You can even start at Wikipedia. There's a bunch. And you were exposed to some of those, I believe, in a Fierce Green Fire. There's no way in this class we're going to cover every aspect of environmental studies. And that is difficult for me because I have to pick out and select based on what I think is going to be the best for you. And I really try to look at your work and your reflections and your opinions as a whole, as a group, to guide my class. So you may notice that, well, you probably don't notice, but I don't teach every class the same. I really try to customize the class to the student population that I'm serving. So this week we're going to take a look at environmental laws. You're going to select an environmental law that is of interest to you. What is the law? What does it entail? As far as protection, what is the environmental connection? And in what administration was it passed? Okay, so we're going to I'll do one right now. I'm not restricting access so that if you're, behind a little bit, you can still go back and post and comment on others. I try to be flexible. I know that most of you are probably working during the week and doing a lot of this work on the weekend, which is kind of the opposite of me. So I want to have that flexibility there for you. Next week, we will have a discussion, and it will be on environmental careers, just to let you know ahead of time. Okay, so can I go in? And I'll do my topic. So my topic is going to be CERCLA. And CERCLA, I'll show you. I'm going to go to Wikipedia because this is just a general one. CERCLA is also known as Superfund, and it actually is, the official name of it is Comprehensive Environmental Response Compensation and Liability Act of 1980, okay? So CERCLA is a result of something that you have learned about, which is Love Canal. Love Canal is the situation that was addressed in a Fierce Green Fire, where the homeowners in the Niagara Falls area were not informed that the homes they were purchasing were built on the toxic landfill or dump facility, and the housewife Oh, let's see. I can't remember her name. They better give her some credit. See, I use Wikipedia too. I just don't use it. I use it for general stuff. So let's see. Why can't I remember her name? And how come she's not getting any credit? Lois Gibbs. That's what I thought. So Lois Gibbs worked to bring attention to this. She was a representative of her community. You see this a lot with women that are mothers. I don't know if it's their values. I think it's partially their values associated with being a parent and having concern. There's some discussion about this in the environmental economics videos that I've assigned to you about the value of having something for the future, even though it may not be enjoyed by us directly. And when you're a parent, you start to have more concern about individuals beyond yourself and specifically your children. I think the other kind of aspect that ties with these so-called housewives that become active is that if, being a housewife, being able to live in a family that has one income and is able to sustain itself is a privilege. So these women have the time to socially interact with other women of the same social dynamic and share conversations and have that community so they know about other individuals that might be suffering, such as women suffering from miscarriages or children getting sick, and then also having exposure to the information that of what may be going on in their community or what may have previously existed in this case. So as a result of the situation, as you saw in A Fierce Green Fire with Lois Gibbs, there was a federal response to this situation in that what happened was there was no precedent for dealing with this type of level of contamination prior to the establishment of CERCLA in 1980. So what this does is it created a way for the federal government to address these situations where there might be heavy levels of hazardous materials. Now that is defined by certain substances, like your garbage and your recycling is not considered a hazardous substance, but various chemicals from industrial processes as well as other things are considered hazardous materials. So what happens in this case is that any group that manufactures, transports, stores, or disposes of these hazardous materials can be held liable for the cost of cleanup. And what that means is it really creates a disincentive because the cost of, or the remediation costs are very high in these Superfund sites. So what happens is anybody who has touched it at any point in the process can be held liable for the complete cost of cleanup. And that's called the Superfund. So the money that's gained from, well, actually, I think taxpayer money goes into the fund that's used to clean up and go through the legal process of getting the money from any of those contributors. And then that money goes back into the fund, if I remember correctly. But basically, Superfund is a law that was established to create an oversight of how do we handle these processes? Because before Love Canal, they never had this situation occur. And in 1980, at this time, what happened was it started to kind of make people or leaders realize if this is happening in Niagara Falls, New York, then where else in the United States is this going to be occurring? And how can we compensate individuals who have been affected negatively? How do we compensate them without the government going into bankruptcy or going broke, basically. It was passed in 1980, but I believe it was, let's take a look, was enacted by Congress in 1980 as a response to Love Canal. And I believe, who was the president in 1980? I believe it was Carter, president of the U.S. in 1980. Jimmy Carter. Remember, Carter put solar panels on the White House and Reagan took them down, as well as he directed policy towards consumption of fossil fuels, which we now see in so many aspects of our lives, including transportation, but also don't forget that plastic is a petro product. So it's very interesting to go look at all the petro-based products that exist in our stores and in our lives, and how we've been told that plastic is such a great thing. So that's a little bit of information. I'll go ahead and type up the rest of my contribution to the discussion. I'll type something up. I'll put it in there for all of you. I hope everybody is doing well. As I mentioned, I know there's a couple emails I didn't get to yet from Friday, but I'll get to those as soon as I can today. I hope you're all doing well. I hope you're enjoying the class. Shoot me an email if you have any questions or concerns. I also wanted to put out there for those of you who are local, let me know if you'd be interested in doing a meetup at campus at the Kirsch Center. If you'd like to, have coffee or do lunch or chit chat or anything like that. And I can probably do that. We can check our calendars. Okay. So let me know if you're interested. It's kind of weird. It's obviously not required because this is not a hybrid class. This is 100% online. But if you're interested in getting together and kind of meeting some of your classmates in an actual face-to-face environment, then I can make that happen. But if not, then it's okay. You don't have to do that either. I know everybody's really busy right now, and I completely understand that. Okay, have a great week. Enjoy watching the political candidates. That's always a good time. And I will be in touch.